Hello, and thank you so much for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's coverage of the Essex Junction and Essex Westford School District elections. My name is Emily Brewer, and I will be moderating tonight's presentation. This program is part of a series of forums hosted by Town Meeting TV in advance of Election Day on Tuesday, April 8th, 2025. These forums are made possible by Town Meeting TV's generous underwriting partners. Thank you very much. You can find all our forums at cctv.org or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. On tonight's program, we will hear from the Essex Junction City Manager, Regina Mahoney, as well as Essex Junction City Council President, Raj Chawla. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you.
They're going to tell us a little bit about the budget and other ballot items that voters in Essex Junction will see on their ballot. So that being said, if you're tuning in live, we welcome your questions. You can call in at 802-862-3966, and Regina and Raj will be happy to answer them for you. With that being said, we can go ahead and get started with the presentation.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So, as you mentioned, we have our election on April 8th, and we were two separate ballots. One is for the city, one is for the Essex Westford School District. So on the city side of things, this is the general fund for the city of Essex Junction. It's at about 12.4 million and 11.4 levied in taxes in the grand list. So we've got a couple of slides here just to sort of go through a little more detail on what that budget looks like. So in comparing FY25 to FY26, it's about a 3% budget change. So the council gave us that direction and we were able to hit that target, which is great. And what that looks like for an average assessed property at $280,000 is $73, because that equates to a 2.6% tax rate change for that 3% increase in the budget. Few other notes just about the tax rate, just so folks know. We assume relatively no growth in Essex Junction grand list, and so if we do see some grand list growth, that may come down a little bit more. The council also asked us to put together sort of the larger impact on residents and taxpayers in the city. So we have both our general fund that people pay for through their taxes, but we also have a number of utilities that folks pay for through the water bill. And so the rates that we are assuming thus far, because those don't get approved by the voters, it gets approved by the council in a couple of months as we refine those budgets further. Okay. But what it's looking like right now is a difference of about $100 on the utility fees that we've got in place now. Plus, we are talking about incorporating a stormwater utility fee in FY26, and that's could be roughly $85. So this slide kind of gives you sort of an overall look at what folks might be looking at in terms of costs to the city in FY26. Great. But the vote is only on that general fund, on that first line.
That's good to clarify.
Yeah. Okay, so just in looking at the expenditures for the general fund budget, for the most part, the largest piece of that pie is public safety. So that's the police department, which is still shared with the town of Essex, and the fire department, and Essex Rescue, which is a nonprofit, not a city department, but we pay for their services through the general fund. We've also got, next up is general administration for the government, then public works, so that's streets mostly, and then transfers and miscellaneous. So there's a bunch more pieces of the pie, but those are the big ones. Then on the revenue side, 75% of our revenue comes from property tax. It looks like some of the labels are missing here, so I can do a fun guessing game as to what these are. The largest piece of the pie is the from residential properties. The gray is business properties generally, The yellow is miscellaneous income, and then the blue piece of the pie is Global Foundries specifically, which is about 6% of the revenue in the city. Okay, then Article 2. So we have one bond question for folks, and this is really to address some pump station upgrades. So 3 pump stations in particular: West Street, Maple Street, and River Street. This bond is $3.8 million. A few things to kind of think about for these. One is what these are and what they do. Essentially, pump stations help move wastewater in the collection system to the treatment facility itself. They're a pretty critical component of the system altogether. And these 3 pump stations are really been put in place quite a long time ago, 1968, 73, and 73, so older than me, and really could use some upgrades. And one thing to point out about the West Street pump station, that is a system that is shared with the town of Essex. Just a point, Essex Junction's wastewater treatment facility services the city of Essex Junction, the town of Essex, and the town of Williston.
Okay.
So that our facility is managed by those 3 towns. We manage it, but it's a tri-town agreement. And so some of this infrastructure is shared with the other towns. This pump station is shared with the town of Essex, and so it will be, that debt payment will be cost shared with them.
Okay. It seems it's pretty timely. I mean, with the vote in Burlington that had to do with a lot of the wastewater, like a lot of facilities being built decades ago. Yeah. Like it's time for them to be replaced. Yeah.
A lot of end of life, which is hard and costly.
Yes.
But necessary, because if we wait, it only gets more.
Sure. These are not systems we want to fail.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Raj.
All right. So Article 3 is relates to the election of officials. So there is 1 city council seat open this year, mine. I'm not running again. We have 2 candidates who I understand will be on a little right after us.
Yep.
For a debate. There is a 5-year library trustee position for Brownell Library. There's 1 candidate for that, I believe. And Champlain Water District Commissioner, which is an elected position. And in the past, that person, we shared that seat with the town of Essex. And so we have that to vote on. It's an elected position for residents. The water district, it supplies drinking water and fire protection water for 12 municipal systems, ours included.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can probably move to the next one.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So just a few points about the individual budget categories within the general fund budget, just so folks know where we are with that. So it includes a 4% salary wage merit increase per our association contract. It includes about $50,000 for wage adjustments for public works. And we, like many folks, are dealing with a hefty health insurance bill. That's in there, and I think one point we wanted to make is, for the most part, this is a 3% budget. There's not a whole lot of new change differences between FY25 and FY26. There's some ups and downs in different parts of the budget, but for the most part, it's pretty much status quo.
Right. And so with that in mind, we'll take you through some of the highlights, but I think as folks will notice, there really isn't a lot of change here. I'll point out our finance department. That seems like one of the higher numbers, but as is pointed out on the slide, there are many elements to this budget that impact other departments, the insurance being one of the biggest there. Community development is another large number on here with increase for matching grant funds that we're looking forward to.
Okay.
Fire, we're up a little bit there due to increased call volume. A couple of years ago, we started paying for training time, and that is one area we're seeing some increase. Health and Human Services, I believe, what was the driver there again?
Yeah, that's, so we switched how we're categorizing midway here to try to help folks, but this is the old category. So this now, Health and
Right.
Human Services,
Yes.
is police.
Police, right. I was like, wait a second, that's confusing me for a second, but this is largely
Yes.
due to the police increase.
Sure.
That we share with the town of Essex.
Yep.
And the county and regional, this is where things like our Green Mountain Transit and other elements show up. And we did approve a special assessment a couple of months ago as part of the overall conversation the state's having around public transit and the county's having specifically with GMT. And so that we're seeing an increase in our regular assessment there, and we're also seeing this one-time special assessment to help with this rethinking of what they're going to do.
Gotcha.
Streets, I think Regina mentioned a payroll increase there to try to bring some of our employees up. And our stormwater came out of the budget because, as Regina mentioned earlier, we're attempting to set up a stormwater utility so that instead of being in the general fund, will now be billed to folks 3 times a year in their water utility bills.
Okay, gotcha. And just to clarify, so the police is shared with Essex Town. Fire is separate?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yep. We both have our own fire departments.
Is that something that, like, and this is just out of my own curiosity, is that something with the police, do you foresee that staying the same in the future or eventually?
I don't know that I'd predict what happens with that. I think, speaking for myself, I think we're very happy with the Essex Police Department.
Sure.
I think they do an amazing job. They certainly serve and represent the city's interest very well. I think it made sense and currently makes sense for us to work with them. Their police department is in the city. But even beyond that, I think I couldn't be happier with the leadership at EPD, and I'm hoping, trying to remember if we're in year 4 or 5 now, year 4 of the contract. And if there were a discussion about changing, that would have to happen soon.
Gotcha.
It's a 10-year contract, and there is a trigger for when that conversation would need to start.
Okay.
But I don't
Great.
see that happening anytime soon.
All right.
Oh, this is me too.
I forget
I
where we
picked
are.
one up. We had this all worked out, but it's fine. It's fine. These are our 2 very large budgets in our community and 2 very dear departments to our community as well. Not exorbitant increases here. Brownell Library, and EGRP met our council ask. The increases and decreases are largely related in EGRP sense to how they're dealing with their enterprise funds. So they run, childcare, they have after school, they have programming that is out of the general fund.
Okay.
And so how do we associate some of the costs of the overall department as they relate to those enterprises has changed a bit. So the enterprises are picking up a little more of the expense that we can target to that to reduce the general fund a bit. And those would be paid by users of those services. And cleaning and admin is kind of part of that, cleaning the buildings that are specific to running those programs and moving that out of the general fund budget and into where it appears that the rates are being paid.
Gotcha. And EJRP, is that the Parks and Rec department?
Yes,
Okay.
Essex Junction Recreation and
Sure.
Parks.
I'm sure most Essex Junction's residents know that.
Yeah, we're all
but
used to the
just
shorthand. I
clarify.
apologize. Yeah, I should
Yeah.
spell that out.
I was thinking that as we were looking at it. I was like, oh, shoot.
Where acronyms are all over the place. I mean, we're at CCTV right now, so.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll keep going. Some of what I just talked about, some of the expenses related to buildings have gone up as everything else has. Seen a decrease in our debt as we pay that down. And every year we increase our we're trying to be very prudent with our capital expenses over time. So each year we try very hard to actually increase how much we put away each year to that, to kind of get ahead of it or stay in line with it. And we're also proposing to add $110,000, which is about 1% of to our fund balance, to basically it's a rainy day fund. Because right now we have a policy that says that 15% of the budget, up to 15% of the budget, should be set aside or can be for a rainy day fund or fund balance. And right now we're at about 7.4 or 7.8. And that money would be used if something catastrophic happened. A few years ago, for instance, we had a culvert in the middle of the city, in the middle of a neighborhood, wash out a road in a large rainstorm, and that actually shut the road down for nearly 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't very convenient for the medical practices that were right there and the residents that were around it and impacted. And while FEMA covered it, we did have to front some of that.
Yep.
So things like that. So we're trying to increase that.
That's a
That
good
was
example.
yeah, and that was optional. It is adding to the tax rate. But the only other way that fund builds up is if we have surplus at the end of each fiscal year.
Okay.
And we budget very tightly, and we don't tend to have that. So that's what that's about.
All right.
And lastly, we have a couple specific funds. One, we started local option tax 2 years ago. That balance is a little over $1 million. It's been used, as mentioned here, for a couple of things. We have a policy that identifies the rest of that fund annually to be used for capital funds that I mentioned earlier, to build up that reserve, and for sidewalk repair, which is highly necessary in our communities for walking school district, and we rely on that. Economic Development Fund, we have a penny on the tax rate for that, and we've earmarked that for a long-awaited Amtrak train station renovation grant match, some last-minute detail work for the Crescent Connector, which is the railroad street cut around for 5 corners. That was a federal project, federally funded, state-funded project, but we're responsible for things like the charging stations and bike boxes and trees and benches.
Gotcha.
And a few years ago, we purchased a triangle of land at 5 corners in sort of a strategic area to build a pocket park, and that funding for that, matching funding for grants for that is coming out of this as well.
Okay.
Like Raj mentioned, the city has a pretty robust capital plan in place and have for quite some time. So we have a good long list of projects that that need to come through the pipeline. But essentially, the list for the coming 5 years are what's listed here. So we've got some work on Pearl Street between Susie Wilson Road and West Street Extension. That section of road has been thought of for quite a bit. If folks are used to walking or biking into Essex Junction, and you come across from Susie Wilson Road, where there is a bike lane now and has been for a couple of years on Route 15, you head across that intersection into the city, and there's no bike infrastructure really within that stretch until you get beyond West Street Extension. So there is still lots of work to do on that, and lots of grant finding that needs to happen to really be able to bring that project over the finish line. But so we've got that. And so one note just about capital projects, these are what we're planning on coming up next, but all of these, once they kind of get into the final design of how much the project really is going to cost, helps dictate exactly when it happens. But that's for the most part what we've got coming up now.
Okay.
Then just we had our informational hearing before the April 8th annual meeting on March 25th. So that will be, I believe it's at 6 or 6:30. You don't have the time on here. But the last couple of years, we've been doing that meeting just as a virtual only meeting.
Okay.
This will be a hybrid meeting now that open meeting law has changed and all council meetings have to be
Yes.
back to hybrid. So we'll be at the police station. That's where our meetings, the city council meetings are, because we're renovating our office space right now.
That's right.
Yes.
Quite a bit going on.
Yeah.
Yes. Sounds like it.
Then annual meeting itself is on Tuesday, April 8th at CVE, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
All right. Well, I think my last question for you guys before we wrap up is just maybe some general information about where people can learn more. I think particularly about the increases to or the new utility. I don't know how to say that, tax.
Yeah.
What you explained about the utilities that won't be confirmed until once the city council starts meeting about it. Where can, obviously tuning into city council meetings, but how can they get in touch with you? Stuff along those lines.
Yeah. So we've got the admin at Essex Junction email up here. So that is the best way to reach staff and to reach me.
Okay.
And we've got the link directly to the budget and annual meeting information up there. Couple of different things. We have done little mini videos that explain a little bit further about each budget with the department heads. So you can find that on this website to get a little bit more information there. We also, in the city, print out and mail to everybody a newsletter that describes the 3 articles. So those should be going out soon. I'm not sure exactly when. But that provides some good information and some links to figure out how you get more information.
Great.
The stormwater utility. So that is going in front of the council again on April 9th for a public hearing. This will be actually the 3rd public hearing because
Okay.
we've refined that program a little bit as we've moved along, and it is technically an ordinance that the council needs to approve in order to put that into motion. We have done a Junction City News right here in this room about that
Wonderful.
program. Yep. So that we've got those on our website, Chelsea Mandigo, our water quality superintendent, is the best person to contact for questions on that, as well as can certainly email me at this admin address, and the council open to questions as well.
Absolutely. Our council contact information is on essexjunction.org.
Okay.
It's the easiest place to find us. It's really simple to navigate right to us.
Great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Raj and Regina. I really appreciate you joining us tonight. And thank you all for tuning in to Town Meeting TV's coverage of local candidates, budgets, and ballot items. You can find this and more forums at cctv.org or on our Town Meeting TV YouTube channel. Don't forget to cast your ballot, or your vote, whatever you want, on Town Meeting Day on or before April 8th. You can contact your local clerk to find out how to obtain a ballot and to register to vote. In Vermont, you can register to vote on Election Day. Thank you very much for watching and sharing Town Meeting TV. Have a great night.